listen, I'm sorry. I forgot to do a video on Beastars after the show ended. Okay, maybe I forgot to watch the last episode as well, but I'm only one person, so today I'm here to make that up because I have one thing to talk about. Episode 12 of Beastars is the perfect example of why Beastars is so good. So with that being said, there will be spoilers for episode 12 of Beastars. Let's get into it. Beastars up until episode 12 really showed something I think many people didn't anticipate with such a series like this one, and that's the show's ability to have so much variety in a show essentially about a wolf who is in love with a white dwarf rabbit, which would be like a cat dating a rat. It's weird, right? This is one of the reasons why I find this show so low-key compelling in a season that had anime like Vinland Saga and Fate Grand Order putting out some of the best content you could find. Not only do we have this romance, but we have elements of action, we have elements of inner turmoil and the struggles of a carnivore to contain their primal instincts, fighting their very nature to be with someone, and then we have elements of stage and theater, and honestly plenty more that I could probably come up with if I hadn't forgot to watch the final episode when it released. One of those elements I mentioned I find really compelling, and that's Legoshi's inner fight against himself. I've compared it in past videos to a drug addict fighting addiction. I think that's exactly what the series was going for here. Legoshi tries his hardest to fight his own chemical reaction to not eating, possibly the love of his life, but also fights these conflicting feelings of him just wanting to be equals with her. This is so evident with Legoshi calling Haru his prey in the last episode, but as well throughout this series. Every time he says it, it feels like something he's ashamed of, and by the end, when he's chasing Haru as he's confessing to her, he says it in such a way that's almost accepting of his true instinctual feelings. Because deep down, Legoshi can't escape who he is by nature. An apt comparison would be if humans just simply started rejecting art. It's in our very nature as humans to create, and to Legoshi, it's in his very nature to chow down. So in many ways, a lot of what Legoshi's character is for these first 12 episodes is finding a way to accept himself and live with the beast inside of him. But this isn't only for Legoshi. At the end of episode 11 and into 12, Haru herself is fighting her own instincts. Haru essentially almost lets herself get killed by Legoshi when they're in a hotel room together after she is saved from the Shishigumi. It just goes to show that Haru, in a way, has accepted her role as a white dwarf rabbit, but hasn't accepted herself to the fullest extent. This continues when later in the episode, Haru realizes that the only person who accepts Haru for Haru is Legoshi, and thus we get our big character development for Haru this season. Haru finally accepts her feelings for Legoshi and realizes how much he cares for her. Of course, she still hasn't fully accepted herself quite yet, but one would hope this is the first step to just that. Haru's relationship with Legoshi is so fascinating, yet simple at the same time. It's simple because this is a story we've seen before with romance, but not too many times in anime, which makes it so fascinating. In most other anime, romance is often boiled down to the same kinds of stories. Oftentimes, this leads to characters feeling put together rather unnaturally. The best and most obvious example is Kirito and Asuna from SAO. While the couple are iconic, actually probably more infamous because all the dynamic the two had in the first 14 episodes of season 1 are basically gone by the second half of season 1. Beastars is avoiding something like that happening rather well because the point of this show is to have two people who don't belong together by their world standards get together. Also, the romance simply isn't, I got the girl, hooray, now kiss and roll credits. There is quite a bit more to it. By the end of episode 12, we are certain both Haru and Legoshi love each other, but nothing is quite set in stone to the viewer. We don't really know their fate as a couple quite yet, but instead the episode rather focuses on what Haru and Legoshi are feeling leading up to this scene. Case in point, the first scene in the hotel. Legoshi, after realizing what he was about to do by having sex with Haru, takes a moment to reflect. He puts himself down and tells himself that he has no right to believe Haru's is his now, which is true. Slavery is bad, but I digress. This is a great scene as it shows exactly how Legoshi thinks, but also how far he's come. And while he doesn't make those advances on Haru, he still makes advances in his character development. As they are lying down and sleeping, Legoshi is appreciative of how warm Haru's hand is and how glad that the warmth that's in her hand is there. This is Legoshi realizing a couple things here. For one, he's glad he decided to pursue Haru, because if he didn't, then Haru would surely be dead, and that would make Legoshi the saddest boy, something he already is, so he doesn't need more of that. But also, I feel this is him finally accepting and letting someone into his heart. The metaphor of warmth in this is much more deep than a literal warmth here. Warmth in this context can be easily substituted for emotional support, love, and acceptance from someone else, and that's exactly what it is in this context. Before this, Legoshi said himself he had taken the comfort of others for granted. He had always accepted those around him would just be there to offer their support, and in reality, that's not quite the case. But with Haru, he has something he cares for deeply, and thus now understands the importance of having people like that. And as well, this doesn't simply apply to Haru just because, it's in a romantic situation. As a person, you could have this kind of realization with anyone, from a 21-year-old college student working at a gas station or a 90-year-old retired person. But in this context, it took Legoshi to get to this moment to reflect on what it means to let the other person in, whoever that may be, in this case, Haru. Obviously, it has affected Legoshi here in such a way that he is now more grateful for these kinds of people in his life. Just goes to show how rough of a state Legoshi was in before all of this. He was conflicted on how he should feel, and if those feelings that he were feeling were right to begin with, or even real. And of course, love is just a chemical emotion, but at least it wasn't the, I love you, Haru, oh JK, I meant I want to literally eat you, literally, kind of, chemical emotion that would make Legoshi sad boy. We don't want to keep doing that. Legoshi's motivations are quite simple in hindsight. It shows off exactly why people are in love with him. He's got this certain innocent charm to him that lets the viewer want to naturally root for him. To put it in wrestling terms, he's the white meat babyface of the show. Simple motivations and obvious traits and qualities people will love, but Beastars simply takes his character in a direction that's full of character depth and character growth, something that is beyond important for Beastars as a show and as a concept. Which is finally why we're going to talk about Juno. I haven't talked about her quite yet, but after episode 12, I feel confident in saying Juno is going to be an extremely important character for Beastars. Juno is essentially the perfect wolf for Legoshi. She's introduced as an extremely popular, extremely attractive, and extremely talented, and extremely perfect wolf that can seemingly do everything and anything, and also look good while doing it. But surprisingly, she's sort of attracted to Legoshi, who's kind of a dork. Which leads to one of the most interesting dynamics of the show, and that's Juno's interactions with essentially every important person in this cast. She's the wild card of this show, and with good reason. She makes it known that she wants Legoshi, and she will do everything she possibly can to make that a reality for her. She asserts just that with Lewis in an earlier episode, and in this final episode of episode 12 with Haru. The latter scene with Haru sort of reveals that she has this low-key obsessive vibe when it comes to Legoshi, to the point she's sniffing Haru to make sure that she didn't have sex with him. Yeah, is that crossing a line? Probably. What happens when you tell a person who gets everything they want and is perfect that they can't get everything they want, and someone who is imperfect to them is responsible for taking that one thing they want away? Well, that's what will make Juno's character interesting in season 2 of Beastars so important. Just running through theories, I can't imagine Lewis returning, if by the final scene of episode 12 is to be believed, and maybe taking advantage of Juno's situation and Lewis to create a 2-person Legoshi demolition team. Or not even that, but Juno simply toying with Haru or Legoshi to get them to break up. And while I think that situation would be played out, I would be open to it in a show like Beastars. But theories to the side, Juno is going to be a must-watch character. She's just too volatile for the viewer to not be interested in what she'll be doing. Also, as well, we have the teaser at the end to suggest that Lewis has returned to the school after everyone has been looking for him, but I don't know how to feel about that. Lewis was missing. Why would Legoshi simply react the way he did, like, oh hey, glad you're back? I think this may be a red herring though, because from this person's point of view, they are taller than Legoshi, something Lewis is most definitely not. But this could be a camera perspective simply not matching up because it was more of an artistic expression than it was a realistic representation. Who knows? As well, our other clue is a trash can with a wad of paper and as well a used gum wrapper. Very interesting, but I'm not quite sure who this could be at all at this point. But if you have your own theories on who it may be, put down in the comments below. Beastars at this point is an essential viewing for me personally. It's such a great show, and episode 12 perfectly demonstrates why I think Beastars is so good. It plays to its strengths so well with its compelling and unique characters that have depth to their arcs and aren't just walking archetypes or tropes. As well, the show focuses on telling this story with interweaving character drama. And because it does it so well, it's able to create unique and dynamic relationships around Haru and Legoshi that make the viewer that much more compelled. Because I can tell you right now, if this show didn't touch upon all of what it touched upon, then Beastars wouldn't be what it is. Of course, that's an obvious statement, but I think it's important that we realize just how much stuff Beastars talks about, from drug addiction like Primal Instincts, to murder, to romance, to the Mafia, which is something I didn't even touch on in this video. Beastars is a varied series, and because of how it's able to balance them all so well, it's such a great show to get into and simply just enjoy. If you haven't already, and I don't know why you're watching this video if you haven't watched Beastars yet, but you should definitely check it out. It's coming to Netflix on March 13th, both subbed and dubbed. Pretty cool. Before we go, I would like to recommend you all go and check out the most recent episodes from the King of Anime podcast and the Anime Nomad podcast. Before our relaunch in April, we recently did a whole podcast on Vinland Saga for the King of Anime podcast, talking about everything from episode 1 to the final episode. As well, after a 2-year hiatus, the Anime Nomad podcast returned with a smorgasbord of anime where we talked about all kinds of shows from Steins Gate to the Fate Stay Night, Heaven's Feel films. Links to both podcasts will be in the description below. So, remember, make sure to like this video if you haven't already, subscribe and ring the bell, comment down below what are your thoughts on Beastars. As well, I have a Patreon where on the $1 tier and above, you get access to everything. That's such a good deal. And with that being said, I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.